Hey guys, all right, so first two videos we talked about selecting the team, and then in the second video we spoke about approaching our administration for their support, our fire chief support. Now in this video we're going to talk about our first team meeting, day one, where we get together and there's a lot of things we have to try to get done in that day or in the days leading up to our first day of training. And here's some of the notes I've made for you guys to kind of keep in mind. All right, so this is the day where we agree on and commit to our training schedule. Again, doesn't matter whether we make it 8 to 4 Monday through Friday for 3 weeks prior to the event, or whether we train 1 day a week for months in advance before the event, 4-hour day, 8-hour day. It doesn't matter. You guys just have to commit to the schedule, because once those are on the agenda, everybody knows to schedule everything around that. Now, there's going to be days that things come up, and we got to try to keep those days to a minimum. But committing to the schedule, guys, is a huge part. We talked about that. Some of the samples in the scheduling: you can have a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. You can do half day, full days, 1 or twice a week in the months leading up to the challenge. That's up to you guys, and kind of schedule or time you want to put into this. Our way of thinking back in the day was, if we do it full days, Monday through Friday, we seem to retain it a little bit easier than to do it over months, and especially when you're a new team. Now, when you're a more experienced team, you can afford to do it 1 day a week, 4 hours, 8 hours a day of training. But when you're a newer team, it helps to have, for consistency, to have a few days in a row of training to start off with. Stabilization, just basic. This is your woods, your cribbing, your step chocks, your wedges, your 4x4s and your 2x4s. That's a minimum of a 4-hour day. We used to do a full 8-hour day on nothing but stabilization. You put three scenarios up: car upright, say like an override, underride, a car on its side, and a car upside down. And off those 3 scenarios, or 3 positioning of vehicles, those are the 3 most common positions you're going to find for vehicles. So the more you train on those, just with the cribbing, the wedges, the 2x, the 4x, and step chocks. Another 4 hours of struts and straps, getting to understand how those struts work, what their capacity is. Same thing for the straps. Really helps us, especially these days with the scenarios that we're presented with, where we're trying to turn 2 vehicles into one, marry 2 components and make it just 1 component. The use of the strut of these straps is super important, as well as the struts. So another 4 hours there. You'd probably be smart to take an additional 4 hours of combining the 2 of basic stabilization or primary stabilization, secondary stabilization, which is again with your struts or with your straps, and just take it from arrival time to up to the medic access at the vehicle. And you can stop and critique yourself as a team on how long it took you to get to that point and how well the stabilization was done. Remember, it's not just how fast you do it, it's how well you do it. Scenarios, if you're doing full day scenarios, 8-hour days, I should say, you're probably looking at least 5 to 6 scenarios in a day. If you're looking at a 4-hour day, half a day of training, you probably should be banging out at least 3 scenarios, 2 to 3 scenarios, minimum of 2, but 3 is more effective to give you, again, that consistency that you're looking for. And again, just commit to the schedule. Create a master list and gather all necessary tools and equipment. So this day that we're having our meeting, we're going to also sit down and we're going to have a list. That list, you can find it on the NAVRO website, on the Turk website. If you're doing a Turk event or the WRO event, you can find it on their website. It's usually posted months in advance before the actual challenge, and you can base your tool list off what they're going to have there. So you're going to take this day to not only create your tool list, but go out and secure all these tools and backup tools for those tools if need be. Also, you're going to talk about getting your uniform and personal tool pouches accounted for. Go through your department to get those. So you're going to need maybe old bunker gear that you can take the liner out, old BDUs, jumpsuits, long sleeve jumpsuits. Remember, all PPEs, eyes and respiratory protection, helmet, of course, gloves, and steel-toe boots. All of that is a requirement, of course. But determine what you're going to be able to put in your tool pouches, what kind of tool pouches you guys want to get, and what kind of uniforms you're going to train in. Determine where the training will be held, i.e. if it's going to be at the training site, we're going to need something like a telehandler or a lull to not just move vehicles around, to be actually put them in positions for scenario work. While a forklift will move vehicles around, it won't put any crush on the cars, neither will a telehandler or a lull for that matter. But forklift is just for moving cars around. For setting up scenarios, you'd be better off with a telehandler or a lull. And if the best case scenario is if you have a front end loader, because that allows you not just to move vehicles around, not just to put them into scenario positioning, but it also allows you to put crush on the car, which is super important to us because the vehicles that we see at these competitions do have crush on them. Determining the props we're going to need, such as Jersey barrier wall, immovable poles, electrical box, guardrails, propane tanks, etc. These are the things that if you can keep them at your training site, wherever you're going to do your training. Now, if you're going to do it, going to a junkyard, guys, this is what we recommend is, try to establish ahead of time a relationship with that junkyard owner of the junkyard or the manager. Go visit them. Explain to them why this training is so important and what kind of training you're going to be doing and how this training will affect not just the members of your fire department and your rescue department, but of neighboring departments as well, as you'll probably be training them down the road. Explain to them also about those props that we just discussed to see if there's any way we can store them there so that once we start our training, we can just go over there, bring the props over, and we're done at the end of the day. We bring it back. Ask for setting up if you can. Try to. These people are conducting business, so if you can have them set up your scenarios first thing in the morning, or even the day before you go out to train, is even better. But if you have to do it in the morning, you get there. Try to do it as early as possible, so you're not bothering again until after lunch to either break down or set up for the afternoon scenarios if you're going to be doing a full day of training. So the idea is to not bother them throughout the day. Again, different ways of thinking on this. Back in the day, we used to set up 3 scenarios. So if you can imagine looking at a junkyard in a big enough area where you'd have a car on its side with a T-bone, another underride over here in the middle, and then off to the side over there would be a car on its roof with another car in contact with it. So that was 3 scenarios that we would have to stabilize and run through and do an actual from beginning to end scenario on, but we had the space to do it and we have the vehicles to do it. Nowadays, what I'm hearing back from a lot of departments is they don't have as much space to work in a lot of the times, and they certainly don't have the availability of vehicles like we used to have back in the 90s and early 2000s. So now that becomes an issue with regards to how you're going to set up scenarios. We're going to do a separate video on that. If you guys follow me on Instagram at Extrication Rescue Training, you'll see that we have done videos on how to set up scenarios and the types of props we use, and whether you in a limited space or a big space, how we can save time on scenario setups. The machineries, again, if we're doing it at a junkyard, we're hoping that they have a front end loader to put crush on the car, or at least a telehandler or lull to move the vehicles around. Guys, some suggestions to win over these junkyard owners and managers of these junkyards and tow yards is you might want to show up on training days with a dozen donuts, or find out how many employees they got there, maybe a couple boxes of donuts, and you just rotate team members on who gets them each time you guys come out to train. Have a plaque made up, a departmental plaque, maybe with your team picture on it, thanking them for this invaluable training that you guys get to do on their at their facility. Maybe you should include them on any t-shirts that you have made for the team. Maybe you show up for a couple of shirts for the manager and maybe the assistant manager or the manager and the owner, and they maybe get a department shirt or one of your team logo shirts. They usually like that. And then this is a big one, guys. When you go into these junkyards, make sure you leave it cleaner than you found it. The biggest thing is for them to have to come out and see pieces of car laying all over, and now they've got to dedicate someone to do that. So if we leave it with all the pieces of the vehicle inside the car, and the car is nicely taken care of, the yard is taken care of, you're more likely to get invited back. Another thing we want to do on our meeting day, of course, is print and review the far right column of the criteria. Only the far right column. Guys, think about it. We're training to the standard, the higher standard. So if you look at your score sheets and criteria, the category, the column all the way to the right, and those categories coming across, that's your highest you can train to. No need to look at anything else below that. For training purposes, we need to train to that high standard. So that's the only column that you guys have to memorize. Now, if you get into assessing later, or you're going to critique your team, yeah, you should probably have a good idea of what the rest of those categories mean and how they affect the scoring. Create a scenario book and log, and assign one of your team members to keep track of what scenarios you're doing. Take pictures of before and after the scenario and what you did, the type of entrapments or entanglements you had. It's all important so that you guys can train future teams, and also to help you kind of keep track. If you're doing too many cars on the roof, you look at some pictures, oh, we've been doing a bunch of these, let's switch it over to doing cars on their side, or override, underride. Might consider assigning a team coordinator. Maybe the second most senior member on the team can help out with coordinating the team as far as starting a list, a text list, and a phone list, and as far as communicating and going through the proper chain of command at work. But to get things, logistical needs that we're going to need, a coordinator is really going to help, because the IC, the incident commander, who's usually a team captain and coordinator, has got so much on their plate already that if we can alleviate some of these things, like these uniform items and training schedules and this kind of thing, it would really serve a huge purpose for the team and set you up for success. So a team coordinator is a good idea to have, at least consider having. And finally, to discuss the team t-shirts that you're going to have made for your team, whatever your logo is. And as far as what you're going to use for a competition uniform or a competition suit. So these are the things you want to consider when you meet when you get together for your meeting, so you guys can go into your training with all your ducks in line and a lot of the stuff to taken care of. Hope you guys got something out of it. Sorry, I know we ran super long today. Please leave some comments here. If you have any comments, any suggestions for training schedules, things like that. What we're trying to do is take a little bit from all the different teams that we work with and try to present these newer teams and some of the older teams that are looking at ways to really improving their training process and a training program. We're looking for as much input as possible. So if you guys can leave your comments, you can check me out on my Instagram again at Extrication Rescue Training. Thanks again, guys. Stay safe. See you in May.